Hello, my name is Sarah Davis and I work for Solihull's Early Years team as an area SENCo. This training has been designed to support you as an Early Years SENCo. It will cover what your role is as a SENCo and will also give you some information about the processes and support in Solihull that are available to you. Specifically, this session will cover what the role of the Early Years SENCo is, the importance of working with parents and supporting key people in your setting, the graduated approach, what it is and how do we follow it, and also we will be looking at Solihull specific paperwork and processes. These are some of the key national guidances that you need to read. No one expects you to be able to quote these documents, but you must understand the principles in them. Today we will talk you through the graduated approach outlined in the Code of Practice, so you will hopefully have a good understanding of that by the end of the training. You will also need to understand how the Equality Act applies to early years settings. Many settings mistakenly believe that if a child is not statutory school age, i.e. 5 years old, that they can refuse or decline to have them in their setting, or that they can only offer a part-time or reduced timetable because of the child's SEND needs. This is not true. The Equality Act clearly says that if a setting does this, they are breaking the law. The Equality Act clearly states that you have a duty to make reasonable adjustments, i.e. offer more in order to meet a child's SEND needs. The Equality Act states that these adjustments should be anticipatory, and that means that as soon as you know that the child has SEND, you must put things in place ready for the child starting in the setting. This is not guidance or optional, this is the law. As an early years SENCo in a Solihull setting, you all have a named area SENCo from the early years team. They are your first port of call for any questions that you have, and remember, no question is too silly. It's our job to help you. We will most often direct you to our early years SolGrid page as it has a wealth of information on it and hopefully everything you need to be an early years SENCo. You can also access information on the Solihull local offer page, which gives information and signposting to services and support for children and young people with disabilities or special educational needs. Additionally, you can follow the link on the slide to find out more information about Solihull's strategy for inclusion, which aspires to remove any potential barriers to children's education and learning through working together to improve the quality of education. This is what our early years SolGrid page looks like. The quickest and easiest way to find it is to type into your Google search engine Solihull Early Years SolGrid page. If you then click on the Send tab, it will bring you to a wealth of information to support you as SENCo. We ask that you spend some time looking through this site and exploring all the different advice that's available. The government has issued guidance on what your job as a SENCo is. You can think of this as a job description. You can find the full document on the SolGrid Early Years page under National Guidance, or you can use the link on the slide. So let's start to break down some of the key parts of your role as a SENCo. This list gives a brief overview of the role. So let's look at the first two items on the list as they are quite similar. The thing to remember is that it is not your job to work with all the children we send in your setting. It is your job to ensure everyone in the setting, so staff in contact with the children, not just key workers, understand that it is their job to provide the support and strategies that a child needs. It is your job as a SENCo to ensure that staff have the knowledge and the skills to do this. So as we previously touched on, a key part of your role as a SENCo is to advise and support your colleagues and to identify what their training needs are. We would recommend that you ask your manager for a regular SEND slot in your team meetings so you can regularly update everyone on strategies for individuals, and you could do some short little training sessions like sharing some videos of key strategies from SoulGrid or talking through approaches that have been recommended in reports. An excellent resource to use for staff training is Dingley's Promise, which I'll talk you through some more. As a Solihull setting, you currently have free access to a wealth of SEND training for all your staff through Dingley's Promise. In total, there will be 10 courses, and currently there are 5 available now for you and your staff to access. One of your key responsibilities as SENCo is to work closely with parents. They know the child best, so talking to them about what works at home, etc., can give a consistent approach and really help the child. Parents need to be informed and need to give consent at every stage of the SEND process. You need to call them in as soon as you have concerns and keep talking to them, genuinely asking their opinion along the way. You will need to make sure that you are involving parents in target setting and reviews for the child so that they are kept up to date with their child's progress and any concerns that you may have. There is advice on the SoulGrid page around having difficult conversations, but it always helps to think about how you would be feeling if you were a parent in that situation. Parents often report feeling judged or not listened to, or overwhelmed at suddenly being told by a setting that they want to make a referral to other professionals, and the parent wasn't aware that there were actually any concerns about their child's development. Taking time to build those relationships is never a waste of your time as a SENCo. Often the SEND process is a long road, and having a partnership with parents can only help that journey. Lastly, but still important, on the list is that it is your job to signpost and to make some referrals to other professionals or agencies if or when needed. Again, if you go to the SEND section of the SoulGrid page and click on the referrals tab, there is lots of useful information for you, including a Pathways for Referrals document, which will help you to understand when and how to refer to the different services and agencies available. There are other people who can also help you and parents with advice. The Solihull SEND Yes service supports children and young people with SEND and their parents and carers. They can offer impartial advice to help settings and parents to understand children's entitlement to their education. Solihull Parent Carer Voice are also useful to signpost for parental support. And of course, there is the Solihull local offer page. The Code of Practice states that a child or young person has SEN if they have a learning difficulty or disability which calls for special educational provision to be made for him or her. Special educational provision is any educational or training provision that is additional to or different from that made generally for other children in your setting. One of the main responsibilities of a SENCo is to maintain the SEND register. Please make sure that you have a SEND register, as this is a statutory requirement, and it helps you to stay organised and track what's been done and what needs doing next. You can find further information and advice, including templates on creating and managing a SEND register on our SoulGrid page. The graduated approach is a process which is described in the Code of Practice. The graduated approach should ensure that all settings are meeting the needs of every child with SEND in a timely and appropriate way. The graduated approach includes the Assess, Plan, Do, Review cycle, or APDR cycle. So let's break down the stages of the graduated approach. Firstly, we have universal support. This is the access to services that enable all children and their families to be healthy, stay safe, enjoy life, and achieve their full potential. This includes everything you do in an early years setting for all of your children. Then we have setting support. Most children will have their needs met through an early years provision which adapts and makes reasonable adjustments to meet individual need. This may include an application to early years inclusion funding or adapting the curriculum or your approach to meet the child's needs. We then have specialist support. This is where a child continues to make less than expected progress despite the support and interventions that you have put in place. You should consider making referrals and seeking specialist support from multi-agency professionals. A referral to the early years area SENCo is needed at this point if the child meets their criteria. And finally, we have statutory assessment. Statutory assessment, i.e. an application for an EHCP, could be considered where, despite the relevant and purposeful action that has been taken to identify, assess and meet the SEN needs of the child, and this is including the involvement of multi-agency professionals, the child has not made the expected progress. To help you understand the graduated approach more, please look at our SolGrid page for early years SEND. Remember, the easiest way to get to it is to Google search for Solihull SolGrid Early Years. Once you're on at the SolGrid Early Years SEND tab, if you click the Graduated Approach and EHC Assessment Request tab on the left-hand menu, you will be taken to a page which contains the Solihull Early Years Graduated Approach document. You should think of this as your Solihull Handbook for Early Years SENCos. It explains the processes and gives you lots of ideas for strategies to use with children with SEND. It can also help you check whether you have put everything in place under setting support before referring a child for specialist support. A key part of the graduated approach is the Assess, Plan, Do, Review or APDR cycle. It is important that you involve parents in each part of the cycle. In the assess stage of the graduated approach, the key person gains a growing understanding of a child's needs. Once a child has SEND, there is an expectation that you will use a different, more detailed assessment tool to track the smaller steps of progress that the child makes. This means that you can't just use the same assessment tool that you use for all children. In Solihull, we provide an assessment tool that we call the SAT. This is available on the SolGrid page, on the same page as the graduated approach document, and it ties in with the referrals to your area SENCo and other Solihull applications such as the EHCP process. Once you have assessed the child's needs, it's your role to coordinate the planning of what support the child will need. The graduated approach is clear that children need to have a plan detailing targets that can be measured, so a SMART target. The plan must say what the setting is doing to help the child to meet those targets. As a SENCo, you will need to write, or you might need to support others to write, the SEND support plans. We have a recommended SEND support plan format that we call the SSP, available on our SolGrid page, ready for you to download and use. Once you have completed the plan stage of the ADPR cycle, it's time to move on to the Do stage. The Do stage is when the support that you decided upon in the plan is put into place. Consistency is the key to success of this stage. Remember, it is SENCo's role to make sure that staff know what they should be doing to support the child. It's also easy to start with good intentions, but in a busy day, strategies can start to get lost and forgotten. As SENCo, you need to be that gentle reminder to staff of what they must be doing to support the child's development. The review stage is a crucial part of the graduated approach. You will review if the strategies have been used and if the child has made any progress towards the targets that were set. During the review stage, you will either set new targets or adapt the current targets depending on the progress that the child has made. Support plans need to be reviewed regularly. The shortest amount of time would be around 6 weeks and the longest would be termly. You should not have the same plan for longer than a term. Once again, the SENCo's role is to support the key person to help drive this process, as they will be the person who knows the child best in setting. It's also important that a parent should be involved in this review process. You can find further support from the Solihull local offer. This is a website about the services and support available for children and young people with disabilities or special educational needs. The Early Years team is a team of specialist early years lead practitioners and inclusion support practitioners who work with children with a wide range of significant and complex difficulties from birth right to the end of nursery. Support can take place in a variety of settings, including home, preschools, nurseries and school nurseries in Solihull. The Early Years team are here to help and support you as a SENCo. You can contact your area SENCo at any time for advice, and we can discuss children anonymously and talk through some general ideas and strategies. You can refer a child to your area SENCo if they meet the criteria. This is that a child has significant delay in 3 or more areas as assessed using the SAT or other suitable tool. Parents have been consulted and given consent, and you can demonstrate that you have followed the graduated approach at the setting support level. So this means that you would already have put strategies in place to meet the child's needs, and you can evidence this through your records, i.e. a reviewed support plan. To refer to your area SENCo, you will need to complete the online referral form, which can be found on the SolGrid page. As part of the criteria for area SENCo support is that a child has a significant developmental delay in 3 or more areas, we are frequently asked what is significant. As a rough guide, we say for a child aged over 2, a significant delay would be that the child is delayed by at least 12 months in at least 3 areas of development. For a child who is under the age of 2, a significant delay would be that the child is delayed by at least 6 months in at least 3 areas of development. You can evidence the child's current developmental levels using our SAT. These are some of the services that you may need to consult or refer to for specialist support. Remember, if you go to the Send section of the SolGrid page and click on the Referrals tab, there is lots of useful information for you, including a Pathway for Referrals document, which will help you to understand when and how to refer to the different services and agencies available. There are also some recorded trainings on the SolGrid page with these services talking about who to refer to them and when. If you have a child in your setting with SEND, you may be able to claim some additional funding to help towards the cost of their support. The Early Years Inclusion Funding Panel meets twice each term. You can find further information on the SolGrid page. To apply for an EHCP for a child, you must evidence that, firstly, the child has significant SEN needs that are impacting on their progress in education. You can use the SAT to assess and track child's levels over time to evidence this. Next, you need to evidence that the needs have been present over a significant period, despite additional support that you have put into place. You can use your SEN support plans to evidence this. You will also need to evidence that you have put into place a high level of support and that the child continues to need that level of support to access learning. You will need to evidence this with a provision map. Examples of provision maps are available on our SolGrid page. For further information, guidance and paperwork about the EHCP process, you can find this on the local offer page and on the SolGrid page. We do ask that you always talk to your area SENCo before you put in a request for an EHCP. We can support the application if we know you are submitting it, so let us help you. So finally, we would like to thank you for taking the time to complete this training with us. And we ask that you could take 2 minutes to scan the QR code and complete the evaluation form to help us to continue providing the support that you want. Thank you.